Joining me on this and much more is the Deputy Opposition Leader, Ted O'Brien. Ted, thanks for your time this morning. So, do you agree with Susan Lee's assessment that he should be brought home despite the apology and despite the Prime Minister standing by him and despite American Republicans throwing their support behind Rudd overnight?
Good morning, Pete, to you and to your listeners today. Yes, I do, but clearly the Prime Minister won't do that. For me, the real insight from the exchange between the President and Kevin Rudd was less about Kevin Rudd's criticism of the President. That's not new news for us here in Australia. It was the fact that we had the US President sitting at the table directly across from our ambassador, and he didn't know who he was. That for me sends alarm bells. How is it that we can have our ambassador to the United States, someone who is completely unknown to the President of the United States? But he now knows who he is, and unfortunately it's clear that Australia hadn't dealt with this issue earlier. For some reason, the government, the ambassador himself, I don't know, they decided not to put this issue to bed. You can imagine if it was a very different meeting yesterday. If the exchange was not a positive one and suddenly this issue arose, it would have been a very different outcome to the entire meeting. So, look, I was more surprised by the fact the President didn't know who our ambassador was. Relationships matter. I don't doubt, Pete, Kevin Rudd's intellect, his experience, his work ethic. None of those sort of things are in question for me. But we're talking about diplomacy. Relationships matter. And if he doesn't have any relationship whatsoever with the person running the White House, that's a problem.
OK, so this deal, though, couldn't have happened without the meeting, which is better late than never. Do you give Rudd any marks for helping to secure that meeting?
Oh, look, there's no doubt that whether it be the ambassador, whether it be the entire DFAT team, there's an army of people who do great work for us in the public service, including in our foreign diplomacy. They all deserve credit for this. This is all about Team Australia. And Pete, so much as I criticise Anthony Albanese, for good reason, by the way, on a lot of things, when a Prime Minister goes overseas, they really have the best wishes of all Australians. Our Prime Minister is the Australian Prime Minister, not the Labor Prime Minister when they're overseas. And that also goes for everyone in the public service. They've done a good job here and they deserve credit.
With more time to pick over the deal, what questions do you have about it this morning, Ted?
Well, look, there are going to be more parts of the deal that we start to understand. The thing that I found really quite odd is the White House released a fact sheet talking about a commitment on behalf of the Australian government of $1.4 trillion in superannuation investment in the United States. This is the retirement savings of everyday Australians. How is it you have the Australian government making a commitment on how those savings are spent? You know, Pete, there's a problem with that.
Right, but isn't the American market the biggest, though? Wouldn't you want the investments to be there, therefore getting more returns for investors in super?
Pete, you're spot on. What's most important is maximising return for superannuation holders. My point is this: it's not a plaything of government. It is not for the government to determine how Australian savings are invested. This should not be a bargain chip in a deal. The responsibility is for the superannuation companies themselves to maximise return. How is it you have a Prime Minister doing a deal with another country using Australian retirement savings? We know how Labor feels about superannuation. I mean, look at the superannuation tax they tried to introduce. That was, super tax 1.0. They now have a super tax 2.0. And now we find out, not through the Australian government, but through the White House, that there's a $1.4 trillion commitment on behalf of the Australian people using their retirement savings as part of a deal. So I think the Australian government needs to explain that part of the deal. Why is it being kept a secret?
Let's get to your house, Ted. Matt Canavan said on this show yesterday that the coalition needs to have it out on net zero. Cameron Redden, our reporter in Canberra, spoke about these meetings that will be taking place next week. He was the one to break that story. So will you be attending those meetings next week?
Oh, look, I hope to be at that meeting, and there's lots of discussions, and I think it's a really good thing, Pete, to be honest. I mean, let's take a big step backwards here. If Australia botches energy, our entire economy is botched. We can't get this wrong. And right now, the Albanese government is failing in this area, which is why we are taking it so seriously as a coalition.
So there's a report in the AFR today that suggests two live options. One, you commit to net zero but push the date back. Or two, keep 2050 but rely on carbon capture and storage and nuclear to achieve it can be, to ensure it can be achieved, I should say. So which one is more likely in your view?
Oh, Pete, honestly, they are probably two of God knows how many options that need to be considered, and they'll be all thrashed out because it is important. We're having this robust debate. You never see such a debate in the Labor Party. They all follow Chris Bowen like a false prophet that he is. Different in the Liberal Party, different in the National Party. We'll have all these discussions. This is how you get to good policy. And Australians can be assured that once we do settle on a policy, it's after this robust debate, which is why our policy and our governance is always better than the Labor Party's.
OK, Ted O'Brien, good to have you with us as always. Thank you.